starving all the billionaires and neutering their Visa Maxes. Topple Congress off their axis, mobilize the homeless, give them axes, call it praxis. Chop a couple limbs off the legislative branches. We'll show you the difference between air as a human right and guaranteed oxygen access. Octogenarians who barely know what day it is are culling countless citizens while sitting on a dais made of ignorance that was built on the graves of the slaves made to labor for its self-declared significance. And all to build a Congress full of millionaires who make their fortunes insider trading while they shit on all the indigent. So I got a bone to pick with our leaders, and I'll start with the ligaments. Pick right through the muscle, dig the marrow out, and serve it to the unhoused millions living in their minivans or watching their belongings get evicted from their tenement. I have a dream where we breach the walls of Congress and just let them in. And what happens next will survive in only text, cause there won't be any evidence. There will only be that heavy kind of feeling that pervades a space where there has been a reckoning and you can feel its remnants. Let any man who enters seeking power know that those who came before him suffocated on their eminence. That there once was a seal on the wall, but we quartered it and scattered all the pieces that it might prevent its semblance. And so we end the great experiment. We'll take all your billions, leave you 2 coins for the ferryman. Leave you drifting on a Dutchman floating derelict among the wretched seraphim. For holy is the hand that wiped the land clean of those who pose as gentlemen. That's my time, honey, cue the thunderclap and strike the theremin. And so we end the great experiment.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning.
We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face.
Nancy gonna cut you a check too late. 2 years after your funeral's paid, 2 years after the grave, she'll be a little stronger for all of the dollars she saved. Watching you wake, watching you cling to your family slipping away. Watch her do nothing but pray. Watch her condemn the Republicans, take them to brunch and then shrug it away. Now watch us be outraged half of a day, then pick a new hero to face our leaders and think they could beat them, playing the game they played since Pelosi had real human blood in her veins. They're all one and the same, sold off stocks and they all maintain that the risk was benign and the virus was tame. Flash forward and 40 Sunday mornings fade, 250,000 people in its wake, and the cruise ship sailed today. So motherfucker, don't shine a light in my face. Wait.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning,
Wait.
Sunday morning.
Wait, we're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never.
Legend says that Hercules swept Cerberus right off his feet and effortlessly set him down softly as a songbird. Atlas kept the world upon his back and every day wondered whether he could stand it any longer. And Tara Reid came out to say the man they tried to label the messiah of morality was really just another rapist. And I don't intend to hesitate when asked who was the stronger. Tara, like Assange, knew that carrying the truth would be the hardest labor. Tara knew that her assailant wasn't gonna make us any safer. And knew he's just the type of man to hand a decent foreign leader US printed walking papers. And knew he'd be relentless and aggressive in the war he'd wage upon her very character. That his attempts to weaken and degrade and embarrass her would be her only compensation. But I strongly doubt that anyone could ever have foreseen the stream of hate that came from quote-unquote progressives and the self-styled titans of survivor advocation. So if you really think there's something to be gained out of sharing your pain with the world, you are sorely mistaken. The Biden team just dragged their feet addressing Tara's allegations. Until they had a decent list of smears, then they aired them out on every station. And it turns out no one wants to hear the truth of who they praised as being worthy of such bloated liberal celebration. That no one wants to really know the person they've so valiantly defended, even when it meant they had to gloat and shit all over someone braver than they'd be if given the occasion. Now cue the faceless comment squad invasion. Cue those fuckers crawling out the woodwork to come analyze the way you wore your hair and what you wear. Like your appearance waives your rights, or that somehow you're the reason for your situation. Somehow they've decided you should bear responsibility for what such monstrous men insist on doing. Somehow they're deluded by the empty, hypocritical, and useless fucking platitudes that bastard keeps on spewing. And I think it's very telling that the best of their excuses when they try to come and justify our president's abuses is a hearty butt Trump. In which case I'll remind you that you never saw the news attempt to sell us Donald Trump like he was morally upstanding or a decent human. But when Joe says something bigoted or ogles someone's little kid, CNN says, isn't this refreshing? Biden's like a mix of JFK and FDR with all the finer parts of Harry Truman. Christ, I know that they don't think that we're the brightest, but at least pretend we got a couple lumens. Ask yourself if you have ever questioned what they fed you, or do you just shut your eyes and then consume it? And now ask yourself if you ate every one of Biden's lies under guise of harm reduction and the promise of a slight improvement. And now imagine long ago that Biden chose to show you who he really was by traumatizing you for his amusement. Now imagine that you watched him touch a Bible with those filthy hands, and then assume the power of the highest seat in all the land, of knowing your attacker wields a global coalition born of three-letter agencies who'll make a life's mission out of trying to discredit you through lies, damn lies, and collusion. Big tech is never gonna separate from our surveillance state. Fuck's sakes, they're just a breath away from total fusion. So there will come a time where even if you see the light, your voice will never reach the sky through all the bots and all the noise pollution. So trust us when we tell you that the masking of abuses is perhaps this country's oldest institution. And I know nothing nobler than facing it in honor of the truth when you know that the people holding power have been neutralizing truth since there was wet ink on the Constitution. So know that Tara's truth is something crucial to the movement. And if you see yourself a partner to the revolution, help this country see through all the baseless propaganda through the crux of Joe's illusions. And recognize that Tara Reid gave everything she had so she could tell us what the truth is. Recognize the decent thing to do when someone bares their soul and shows their bruises is not to ask for context or offer up your own solutions. Your job is just to listen with an honest mind and put yourself on Tara's side a moment so you understand the path she chooses. That there is no instant fame worth the dragging of your name. And if that's what you think, you've a lot to learn about the kind of facts the mob can handle and the kind that it refuses. You've a lot to learn about the news and all its many uses. Guess you've yet to learn the truth the news will serve as fruit from which they've squeezed out all the juices.
And we all eat the husk and just pretend it's full of nutrients and isn't really useless. But the jaws of our ability to yield accountability are absolutely toothless. So don't you kid yourself that any lips are being loosened. They won't ever tell us where the bodies are or show us where the proof is. It's on you to recognize the lechery our president so regularly oozes. It's on you to muster up some honesty and ask yourself how Biden won your trust, but it's America that loses. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises. False alarm. I thought that help was here. But it was my own reassurance bouncing around 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears.
You hear me?
Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers. Staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear. But that was back before the Basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere. Where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Indie Left News.
Independent Left News.
Oh yeah, and I get news from Independent Left.
Thank you, Independent Left.news.
They actually put up posts of different shows, different things going on.
Check out Indie Left. They're doing a lot of good things. They're on Twitter and Instagram, and they've helped promote our show a lot.
Thanks for the work you do behind the scenes too. This man does our Discord and some other help, so I just love to shout him out. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah. They kind of really do a great job of pushing.
Thank you, Independent Left, for reminding me of that.
Check out IndependentLeft.news.
Indie Left, shout out.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I am really excited. It is Friends of Indie Left. It is Wednesday. And actually, it's a Friday afternoon. Oh, my God. It's Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock Wednesday. I am here with a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours, a good friend of ours. He's already listed in the thumbnail and everywhere, so let me just go to him. We have got Franco from Franc Analysis today for Friends of Indie Left. So, Franco, thank you. Welcome. It's so good to see you, my man. I just want to talk to you and have everybody kind of learn about you and that doesn't already. So welcome to Friends of Indie Left. I'll let you kind of introduce your channel a little bit, and then I'll give my little spiel as to kind of how I found you and all that stuff. But you know what? Before we do any of that, let me do a little like intro. Hi everybody, welcome to Friends of Indie Left. This is Indy. I started the show because I wanted to feature and get more personality out of the people that we watch every day. They cover news very often, but we don't necessarily know very much about them, about how they've evolved into streaming, into covering news, and what their story is. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about them. and that was the whole point of this show. And of course, I've known Franco for quite a while, so I'm really excited to have him come on. You can see I'm a little keyed up. Before we get started, I did want to shout out to all the volunteers that do make Indie Left possible. We've got Big Mad Crab that works on our thumbnails and our artwork. We've got Phantomos Phanto with our video editing, and we've got Fred Edward and the resident skeptic Chris Gilman out there on Twitter and Facebook sharing our links everywhere. And of course, we've got our super engineer, Reef, and we're being streamed on 8 different platforms right now, including INN, Indie News Network, which we started last year. Really excited about that. We're on Rumble. We're on Rockfin. We are on Odyssey. We are on Telegram. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So we are on 8 different platforms live. You can watch this everywhere. Please share the stream out everywhere you are. And I want to get into talking to my friend Franco, and everyone can kind of hang out and listen to it. So I've got some questions for sure. I wanted to definitely, I usually start. So let's let Franco kind of introduce his channel, and then I'll do my little introduction and on him. So go ahead, Franco.
Awesome, Indy. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate that. It's crazy that we've known each other now for like almost 2 years now. It's time's really flown by. I have my channel on YouTube, Rockfin. I'm also on Odyssey. I do solo videos, interviews. I love doing panel discussions as well. I've done some work on the ground, broadcasting live events or yelling at politicians. So that's what I do on my channel on Franc Analysis. Thanks again, Indy, for having me.
Cool, man. Yeah. So again, my description is that Franco has a calm demeanor. He asks insightful questions, and he gets people to open up due to his non-confrontational style. He's interviewed hundreds of guests across a variety of topics and ideologies, and he takes questioning mainstream narratives. And his takes have, by questioning mainstream narratives, have seen his YouTube channel demonetized since January 2021. So if you can support, by all means, go do it over on the Rockfin for Franco, and maybe if he wants to put his Cash App out, we can do that too. But I shared his Rockfin link, so you can go and support that there. He also is of course on Twitter, and his link will be there as well. So my first question that I always love to get into at Friends of Indie Left is, how did we end up having this conversation? Like, what led you to being here and in this space, and us kind of connecting and literally ending up having this conversation? I love just kind of seeing where that goes. So I'm going to let you kind of go right now and let everyone know kind of how we met, how you ended up in this space, and what's going on, man.
Yeah, how I ended up in the independent media space goes back. Well, we got to start with what got me into politics, which was in 2016. And that was because I heard Bernie's message. Before that, I didn't care about politics. And I know a lot of people can say that Bernie was their gateway, and TYT was their gateway to news outside of the mainstream television networks. So I would listen to that, and then I was like, all right, so that makes sense why we're not getting anything, that's anything positive that's going to help the people. We had Obama, and then, back when I was in early high school, I thought that under Obama, we were going to finally get changes. That never happened. And Bernie Sanders was bringing to light that it's because corporations own both parties. So if corporations own both parties, then it's all a show. It's all theatrics. So I didn't follow along when he was telling us to vote for Hillary Clinton, because at the end of the day, the corporations were going to win. So after Bernie Sanders lost the primary, or I should say after it got stolen from him, we all know the story. A lot of evidence supports that. And then I was listening to independent media. Like, I found out about Jimmy Dore through TYT. And then from there, I ran into other channels, a lot of which I don't listen to anymore, like Kal Kalinske, Humanist Report, and the like. Eventually I ran into Nico House's channel back in 2018. But at that point, I was just casually watching. And then it was during the Democratic primaries for 2020, but this was like in 2019 towards the end, where I started listening to independent media a lot more. And it was in January where we saw all the memes of, oh, World War III is about to start because Donald Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani with a drone strike. And I saw a lot of normies, you know, making memes about it, a lot of people around my age and younger. So I thought, hey, let me take this opportunity and join my friend's podcast. They had a local podcast called HMO Podcast where they talked about entertainment and sports. Why don't I join them and talk about politics? Let me help be a gateway for some of those normies. So I joined their podcast. I started talking about politics. I went on the ground and I interviewed Anya Parampo and Medea Benjamin outside the White House. And that was great. I really liked doing that, but with the lockdowns, I couldn't do as many on the ground interviews or broadcasts until like later, late 2020, early 2021. But after I joined HMO Podcast and started getting used to making videos in the studio, that's when I branched off and started my own channel. And I started pumping out more videos, started meeting more people as I did more interviews. And I gotta say, as I started doing this show on Franc Analysis, I realized that there was so much that I didn't know when I initially started. It opened up a whole can of worms. Listening to people like So Newsday, for example, or The Last American Vagabond, or Whitney Webb, Corey Morningstar, and I could list a whole bunch of other people, but that really opened my eyes to how much deeper all of this goes. So that's just my passion. I love informing people. I love educating people. And right now, because of the demonetization and everything, I can't really make a living off of this. And I shouldn't do this, you know, for the money or anything. If people donate, then that's great. But I'm at a point right now where I love informing. It's a passion, but I'm doing it as a hobby. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now, Indy. That's how we met. That you were helping me out, and you know, you've been a great help along this journey.
Yeah, well, somebody connected us. I'll give a shout out to Mona Carmona, the wonderful, lovely, beautiful Mona. Hi, Mona, if you're watching. She probably is. But about 2 years ago, I was hanging out in Discords through Richard Medhurst, through a couple of other channels. Hardlands Media has a channel as well. And Mona was talking about you as like, hey, you should check this guy Franco out. And I was like, okay, so, you know, I've been doing the newsletter for 2 years for Independent Left News and Leftist.today. I just started last summer, but you're definitely your videos and your takes are one of the featured creators that we definitely include on a regular basis. And it's because I think we align and you ask insightful questions and you let other people kind of share their opinions and don't try to influence them in any type of way. You kind of let them figure it out for themselves, and I really appreciate that style about you. I mean, you certainly will present the evidence, and you're going to do the research to find the evidence, and you are one of the most researched guys in the space. Again, you know, our fam, you know, Robert Durden always talks about how you're one of the most prepared guys he sees out there for sure. And again, I love that you're mentioning all these creators, because that was actually going to be one of the next things that I asked you about, were some of the people that inspired you. Okay, so you talked about Nico, okay, and you talked about Slow News Day and T-Lav, Ryan Christian, Whitney Webb with Unlimited Hangout, Corey Morningstar. We also can't forget Convo Couch and
yes,
Fiorella and Pasta over there, and Misty, and Robbie Yeager. I know you had Robbie on just last week. Talking about the Colonial Pipeline, and I got to give a tremendous amount of credit to MCSC in general, because when you look around at that specific story, there's really no other network where every content creator in the network is covering it and giving it amplification and giving it the due that story really deserves. And it's remarkable that the rest of independent media has completely ignored this. And I appreciate you actually, being one of the people that keeps the pressure on and keeps bringing Robbie on and keeps sharing his tweets and Politify News and doing Substack. It's so important that we lift each other because of the banning and because of the demonetization that we've seen happening. And again, I'm just glad that you've branched out. I mean, I know you had, Derek Bros is somebody that you've introduced me to, for example, the Conscious Resistance. And there's a ton of different people. It's Shadowban Refugee, who you have on your show. Pretty. He's now our associate producer. We joke around on LA. If he's there watching, he probably is, because he shared our stuff out. But yeah, I mean, again, we're just having fun in the space, but also educating, informing, connecting, amplifying, and trying to be positive, but providing a counter narrative to what's being put out there by this avalanche of independent media, of and even independent media, but specifically corporate media that's dominating, the 20 companies that really dominate most of what America sees, hears, and thinks, the normies that you talk about that aren't plugged into Twitter all day long, that aren't plugged into the independent space, that unfortunately have no idea who Franc Analysis and Independent Left News are. We're trying to change that little by little. And how do we do that? I think that one of the ways that you've been doing it is through Rockfin, and through building out independent mailing lists and going direct to the people by trying to go around the platforms. Like, for example, right now we're streaming. Actually, I forgot to mention, we're actually on a 9th platform. We're actually streaming live at independentleft.news. So we are also self-hosting, and that, I think, is one of the ways that content creators can also diversify, is start to drive traffic to a website that they own, control, and can't be shut down or demonetized or deplatformed by anyone down to the ISP level. And then again, you have Cash App or Ko-fi or other ways to be monetized as a content creator, or even Substack, where they can't shut us down and we can still figure out a way to be monetized. Even go get funding, I believe, is another one of the apps that I know Steve has been using at Slow News Day and some others. What are some of the other things that you recommend to up and coming podcasters, content creators that are starting out right now, that are trying to break into the space? There's a tremendous amount of saturation right now. How do I find a lane? How do I break through? I'm just starting a channel right now. Which platform should I be trying to get on? I mean, I think a lot of people have these questions, and you, as someone who's now been in the space for a couple of years, I think could give them some pretty good advice as someone who's grown a channel pretty decently and organically, and in my opinion, the right way. So
well, thank you for the kind words. First of all, I really appreciate that. But if someone wants to get started now, in terms of finding what's the style, what's like my area of focus and all that, like if you're thinking about these things, just it'll come naturally as the journey progresses. At least that's how it was for me. Just start out, talk about whatever you want, and from what you see in the news. If you feel like you have a great take on it, just talk about it. If you have a lot of evidence to back up a certain story, present that to people. We especially need more people in this space that can put scoops out there. Talk about some stories that's not being talked about enough. Like, for example, what Robbie Yeager's doing in the Colonial Pipeline crisis. Hardly anyone's talking about that, even within independent media. So we really need more people like that. And then, before you realize it, you'll realize that you already have like some kind of like a niche in this space. After you see, oh yeah, it is true, I've been mostly talking about these stories, and this is how if I have guests on, this is how I talk to them and all that. A lot of those things will come naturally. Collaborate with people. That's a huge thing right now. Before, there wasn't as many collaborations back around like 2016, 2017. That's when YouTube wasn't as authoritarian on their platform, right? Before, like, I used to listen to, like, again, I mentioned Kyle and Humanist Report and Jimmy Dore. They knew each other, but there wasn't as much collaboration. Their channels grew a lot because there wasn't as much censorship. Now, because of all the censorship, it's really hard to find our channels and all that. So the easiest way for people to find your channels if you collaborate with other people. I mean, you have INN is made up of all these people that collaborate with each other, right? And all these networks also collaborate with each other. RBN, MCSC Network, INN,
Roar
Media.
Hardlands. Yep, for sure. And that's
We're
how
all
we've
friends
been
with
doing
each
it.
other. Yeah, we all help each other out. We all help push stories out there, and we all learn a lot from each other. And if we really want changes to start arising in this country, we're going to have to be more open-minded and be open to learning from each other. Don't be so dogmatic and think you have it all figured out, because believe me, you really don't have it all figured out. Things go really, really deep. And the only way you're going to figure that out is if you're open to hearing from other people.
Yeah, just remember we all have a common goal. And I think for the most part, we are all aligned in most of those common goals. Once in a while, we're going to disagree. I mean, I don't know any people that literally agree 100% across the board. So it's just about finding the areas where you have common ground and then figure out, how do we meet in the middle? How do we work together to educate, to amplify, to do this again together? And that's how, the only way that we can do this. Right now, there are so many factions and so many forces that are in play to try to divide, especially ahead of an election year, where you've got people that are like us that are saying, look, the Democrats are offering nothing, the Republicans offer even less. Either way, you're completely screwed, and we only really advocate for voting independent or third party wherever you can, and ballot measures, if you're even going to vote at all. A lot of people believe that the machines really are controlled, and the entire system really is controlled, and we really have no decision making in the process. The laws and the statistics have shown that unless you are a mega donor that is able to bundle, that your influence is pretty much minuscule to none with a politician, and all they're going to do is platitude us until they get to their next donor and to their next election and to their next race. Yeah. Look, some of the people who have the biggest coffers right now in Congress are the ones that are quote unquote uncorrupted, that only take that are supposedly only taking small dollar donations from the public. But meanwhile, they've got over $1 million plus they're starting to fund and trying to fund corporate Democrats, because we've seen this happening. Once they give money to the DCCC, we know where that money ends up going. Once they give that money to the the DSCC as well, the same thing. We know where that money is going. That's being funneled to consultants. That money is being funneled to lobbyists. That money is being funneled to agencies and corporate media. It's just, which is only going to make the problem further exacerbated and bigger, and give them even more control over the microphone and over what's said and who gets to say it. That's why we're doing what we're doing in independent media. And again, I want to amplify and uplift and talk about some of the other working experience that you had. Like, I don't necessarily want to hear. I mean, you can talk about what you're doing now, but I want to talk about like some funny jobs that you had in the past, people who you worked with that helped shape your view of what working people are going through on a daily basis, in addition to what we're all going through, because we're all, we're working for the man. And as it be said, we're not billionaires here. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, I was just to add on to a little bit of what you were saying before that too. I was going to say, whatever, you should go with whatever has the most evidence when you're wondering about, were our elections rigged, or Is the jab really hurting people? Look at all the evidence. Don't stop searching for more evidence, because just like how science is an investigative process, so is investigating what the actual truth is. It's a never-ending journey. Always keep looking for more evidence, and you go with whatever has the most evidence. As far as what jobs I've had before, I've worked as at Target Tech selling cell phones. I went to college for I studied biology. I worked. I don't know if I'll just be open with everybody here about it. I've worked before as a post-bac at the NIH. And post-bacs, like, you think you went through all that effort in college to get all these good grades and everything, and then once you get there, you're treated as like a servant, barely getting paid, doing the experiments that the principal investigator wants you to do. And the principal investigator can only do the research that is approved by the people that give them grants, by the institutions, and who controls the institutions, to corporations. So if you're thinking about why we can't discover more things, and it's because it's all restricted for what's going to make corporations more profit. That they control who's at the boards, and that is something that helped open my eyes more to the whole COVID stuff. Everybody in the science, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in the science field are really indoctrinated into the system. And when I stepped away from that, from the NIH, that's when I started, and when I was like paying attention to independent news and everything, I started seeing, oh my God, people are just like in the matrix. They're not questioning things. I saw when I was in grad school, people were questioning the narrative about COVID in early 2020. And when they were saying, oh, we got a lockdown and everything, I saw professors for molecular microbiology saying, oh, like, this doesn't make sense. Why are we going to do this for something that's not, it's not that dangerous? And then once Fauci started saying that we should lock down and everything, and other health and public health authorities started saying that we should lock down, then that's when they were like, oh, okay, if they're saying it, then that means that we should. So you see how it still influences people within the science field. And I'm not saying everybody is like that, but this is how we have so many people just like going with the motions, just doing as they're told. And I imagine this is true in a lot of fields that working class people are in.
Yeah, and corporate media. I mean, think about all the corporate news sponsored by Pfizer. All the everything now sponsored by Pfizer. And again, the reason why they're doing that is they're buying favorable coverage. And I think that's kind of where you're going with that, is the reason why you have to question it. And that's one of the things we do, is we follow the money and we question everyone's motivations. And we have to look at the profit motive.
I saw more. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I saw more people questioning things when I was working at retail, selling phones at Target, than when I was at the NIH. And I think it's because working class people feel the hurt more, but other people that are like working at these like high institutions like the NIH have just been so successfully indoctrinated through all these years of college and just going through the motions and all that. Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No. I just wanted to add into your stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, NIH. I had no idea that you had a bio background, and again, I know that you've been you followed the science, and you've been following the actual tests and questioning why are they looking for a 75-year waiver. You've been asking the hard questions. Why have they been continuously shutting down Ryan Christian's channels and his Twitter when all that guy does is look at the most peer-reviewed studies that we've seen and brings in global data, which is inconvenient truth. I mean, literally, it's so maddening. And again, you're one of the people that keeps pressure on, and there's not enough of us and not many of them that are daily and regularly questioning what they're putting out there and asking Why? What's the motivation? And showing, here are what the reports are showing. Here's what the actual results are showing. Here are the side effects that people are reporting. There really is a female menstrual issue. There really is a myocardial issue. There really are these issues, and they're being reported by the pharmaceutical companies themselves. But then they're trying to shut down discussion or exposure of this. And again, so we have to continue to keep this up. And you know, I've got kids, and you know, the way that they've been pushing to try to get young children more shots, it's alarming. And look, we see COVID ripping around like crazy right now. It seems like everybody's getting it. And we knew from the beginning, like, again, if you follow the science, that it was going, everybody was effectively at some point going to get it. For how much they keep moving the goalposts, and it's been frustrating for sure. And again, this is, thank goodness for platforms like Rockfin, like Rumble, like Odyssey, that are allowing this kind of conversation to happen, because it's being narrative managed like crazy on the big platforms like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. I know every time you try to set up a Facebook page, for example, I mean, how long is it before the Facebook page gets knocked out? Or, I mean, it's been pretty insane. I remember a couple times, right? Instagram too.
Yeah, they don't want people to make up their own minds, because they know that they're going to figure out the truth, and it's not going to be convenient for these institutions that control everything. So it's not just with news about public health, which what T-Lab was covering during 2020, 2021, and up until now as well in 2022, but with foreign policy as well, right? They're going to, if anybody out there is going to be interviewing weapons experts or other people on the ground in these other countries that are going to present evidence that contradicts what the mainstream media is pushing out, they're going to censor that, as we're seeing with the Ukraine situation or with Syria or Libya or any of these other issues. So I applied what I was seeing there with the science field to what's happening with foreign policy, or what's happening with the food industry and the agricultural industry, and how they poison us with all these artificial additives that they add to our food. And I mean, it makes sense. If they get us sick, they get us to have these autoimmune diseases, then we're dependent on big pharma so that they can treat our disease and not actually cure it.
And you know, with some reports saying that it reduces the reduces your ability to recover and your immunity level, that, you know, you're going to be further exposed and further in their pocket and dependent on them, like you said. Shout out to Glory Jones in the chat.
Yo, Glory Jones.
What's up, Glory Jones? Les Bones, RLA. Everybody's out here. No, I don't want to talk about that dude. I want to talk about a different dude that I think everybody would much rather talk about, who's sitting in Belmarsh prison, Julian Assange, that Franco has also been one of the champions to cover. He's interviewed the Shiptons. He has interviewed pretty much everybody within the movement, and been one of the loudest supporters and advocates for freeing Julian Assange, for, again, and all of this is tied to his case and to the Espionage Act, and the way that they're coming after journalists, the way they're coming after publishers, the way they're coming after anyone that is publishing a counter narrative to the security state, to the quote unquote deep state. And again, that's one of the things that you can expect to find over on Franc Analysis. He's definitely never been afraid of that narrative, and to ask those questions and to amplify and shine a light on freeing Julian Assange and on all the different aspects of how they have, this country and the UK have persecuted this man and have chased him all around the globe and have manufactured stories and crimes and all kinds of things to keep him silenced, and to serve as a further warning to all other content creators, which makes it that much more important to what we're doing. We're all taking huge risks here. And again, you talked about some of the people in the field that are putting themselves at risk, and I know that you've recently spoken with Vanessa Beeley and with Eva Bartlett. I know Tara Reid recently spoke with Wyatt Reed and with Alina Lip, who is right now literally under arrest in Germany because she was reporting the truth from Ukraine and Donbass over what's happening. I mean, it's a scary time to be an independent journalist, but getting the truth out there is more important than ever. So again, this is why it's I give you so much more credit for what you're doing, and again for why we're doing what we're doing. We're really trying to fight this narrative that if you don't do this, they're warning you that you could end up persecuted, jailed, and who knows what, your life ruined. But we still do it anyway. Why?
Right. Thanks for bringing up Julian Assange, because that's central to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to get information out there, we can't do that if we don't have free press. And if they successfully extradite him to the US, and I mean, that shows that we don't have free press anywhere in the world. The US is going to try to extradite anybody that presents information that's inconvenient to the elite class of this country, or of any country. If they can, successfully extradite someone to, we have to really get the message out there about whistleblowers when they present information. It's when they're the ones that are presenting the information that's most threatening to these people. So anybody that's getting censored the most is most of the time, it's because they're presenting information, the most information out there, like TLAB presenting all these documents in regards to public health, the scientific literature and all that. His channel is getting taken down a lot harder on YouTube and on Twitter. He can't even have like a stable account on Twitter because of how all the information he was exposing about COVID-19. Julian Assange exposing all the stuff that the US government has done, not just what the US has done, but what the Russian government has done. So, I mean, free Julian Assange, keep broadcasting all those events that are happening on the ground. Those are really important. Shout out to Glory Jones. She was also helping Commander X, someone else who's in the information world, trying to expose corruption in this country. So, I mean, that's central to everything. We got to protect our freedom of speech. Anytime there's censorship happening, we have to call that out. Even if it's just like a video that gets removed, we got to call that out and stand by our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and then the DMCA thing is a whole other thing. So this is one of the latest deals that we've been hearing about. What the police are doing is they're starting to now play copyrighted music over while they're policing, so that you can't film them and live stream it, because otherwise the big networks are going to take it down. It's the security state working in conjunction with big tech, big pharma. It's kind of funny. I was listening to Jimmy Dore talk about that literally yesterday. But
they come up with anything.
It's
right? They censor my videos when I'm on the ground because there's a car that passes by with loud music playing.
They just keep moving the goalposts, man. It's this is why we need to share each other's videos. We need to tell everybody in our circles about these different channels, and not be afraid about the concern. Look, we need to have more conversations and argue and know how to argue. One of the things that we've all done is ended up in these little bubbles. One of the things, honestly, I do commend you for is you also like to, like you said, have these panel discussions where you bring together people of different ideologies that have open conversations, okay, about what do we do about third parties, electoralism versus direct action. Where do we put our energy and focus when you're questioning COVID science and narrative? Who are the scientists and who are the studies that we can rely on and that we should be looking towards? Again, I've seen you interview when it comes to Ukraine and it comes to the narrative on foreign policy. Just this week, you had Garland Nixon on this week. Garland Nixon used to be on the board of the ACLU and works for Sputnik and has tremendous amount of foreign policy experience. I know. God, so I wanted to ask some of you, and Cynthia McKinney, by the way, I also wanted to shout out the conversation you had with her recently. Again, you can see that not only do we cover Franco's coverage I'm a fan and a friend. I actually do watch the videos. I watch his interviews. I think they're insightful. I think he asks amazing questions and gets people talking about things that they wouldn't necessarily ordinarily be talking about, and going deeper. Again, I think that everybody really should be subscribing to Frank Analysis on everywhere. I'd love to see you on a couple more platforms. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was writing. I know have you done any writing like Substack or blog writing or anything like that, or has it really just been video content?
I've done 2 Medium articles in areas that I'm most comfortable writing in right now, which was on vaccine mandates and on mask mandates. So I do have 2 articles on those. I cite scientific literature, I cite historical evidence, and I cite what people like Bill Gates have been doing in Africa and things like that. And I connect all that together on why we should be really skeptical when it comes to these mandatory public health procedures that aren't based on enough evidence. So I do have articles like that out. I haven't written much out like other articles, but I look forward to doing it more as I start being more informed about everything else that's going on in the world.
Yeah, sure. I've read, actually, I think I shared one of those Medium articles, if not both of them. They were in Independent Left News, but definitely go check out Frank Analysis over on Medium. I also wanted to shout out that you were one of the first people to have a Discord as an independent streamer. It's still there. It's definitely not as active as it used to be, but one of the cool things about it is I kind of approached you and said, look, you've got this kind of blank canvas, and let's kind of make it like a Franco's world, all things about Franco, and give fans or people who want to engage, how do we find all the different content? And it's a way to get around the alert, the algorithms. It's a way to get around the alert systems that are suppressing us. And it's a way to find every platform that you're on, pretty much, because one of the cool things about Franco's Discord, and I helped him set it up initially, is that it brings in all of his tweets. It brings in all of his YouTube videos. It brings in all the Odyssey videos. It's got, God, there's so many different channels that you can.
Thank you so much for that, Indy.
Oh no, again, it's my pleasure.
And it's not only my Discord. You helped out a lot of content creators' Discords, and it connects it to their tweets, their Odyssey videos, Brockfin, or does it connect to Rumble too?
It can.
If they have a Rumble channel.
I don't think we started doing that yet, but once you get that hooked up, we can definitely get that hooked up. We're going to hook it up to Facebook and Twitch, but I don't think you're doing much over there. But that's where you can also find all the links. It's like Find Franco and Fund Franco, so you can find them everywhere. And then there's all these different discussion channels where people can engage. Again, we're not using it nearly as much as we used to. I know we used to all go into voice chat and hang out in there. And that's where you would do your open panel discussions, and you kind of open it up to all your fan base. And that's also something that's pretty unique. I haven't seen too many people doing lately, is to open it up to the general public to have a conversation and to ask those questions. And I love the fact that you're that kind of accessible and you're not afraid to engage, and that you're not above it to that point. Because I know a lot of people, when they start to get the kind of audience that you have and the size audience that you get, they tend to only really focus on the people who are either in the space or have larger platforms. And again, reaching our hand back down and pulling people up and helping to amplify new voices is definitely one of the things that I've seen you doing. And again, I appreciate you for the amount of lift that you've given to INN and all the different creators that have been on our channel. And we're going to continue to do that. The collaboration that we've already been doing, goodness, I'll tell you, and I didn't go back, the very first interview I ever did on any YouTube channel anywhere was on Franc Analysis. And that was before the US Solution Summit last May. And I was nervous as hell talking about this crazy event that I had that I'd helped organize and booked all these different lefty streamers. Fun. And it was an experience. And again, the friendships and the connections that have come out of that still are lasting. And We had a good
You
time.
got
And
to
dude,
know you got to know a lot of those personalities a lot more throughout the years, right?
right? Well, and okay, I want to actually. This is the first time I think I've ever really been on camera with you about this. I want to formally apologize for what happened at the U.S. Solutions Summit. The Zoom call cut off early. It threw us out of the Zoom meeting
Oh yeah, I
rooms
forgot
that we were
about
in.
that.
I know that, but I just
No,
wanted to do that because
I
always
completely
kind of felt
understand that.
felt
I
awful
know
about
Zoom
it.
puts like time limits and all that, but
And then you
yeah,
like,
no worries. I went on my stream after that and I said, hey, here's the rest of what I was gonna say.
that's exactly right. You know,
Totally
I felt
fine.
I was so happy that you were able to do that because I did feel awful at the time that you got cut off and we had set up this whole
It's the
format.
first solution summit you guys ever did. So
Yeah.
you guys, it was your first experience. You guys had never done something like that before.
No,
You guys had to work with a lot of people. I know it's difficult to deal with a lot of people like that. But yeah,
we've
the
only
panel
done one
discussion.
since. We did the student debt boycott marathon
Oh,
3 or
yeah.
4 weeks after we started INN. Lucy had this idea. She says, you know, we should really be doing something about boycotting student debt. She organized this phenomenal thing. Now, again, we've supported direct action and we've supported some other conferences. What we're really trying to start doing now, and shout out to Colin, because I know you and Colin have been friends for a long time now, and you guys were standing at the Capitol together screaming at Cori Bush when she shut you down. And I always want to give credit to INN Colin. He's on INN News every Wednesday night now. Check him out.
Yeah, he had my back that day.
He sure did. And what about the 10%? What about the 10%?
Yeah, I was like,
So,
if like I get hate, it doesn't matter. What matters is me helping to wake people up here. Like I'm gonna ask these questions that these politicians are purposely ignoring. So yeah, I yelled at them, asked them these questions because there are all these people that were buying into this false victory of like, oh, we're helping all these people that are about to, lose their homes, even though it was just kicking the can down the road.
right.
And they didn't go back to the Capitol once, what was it? The Supreme Court lifted that pause on evictions. But yeah, I yelled at them, and Colin also started backing me up and was yelling at them too. But this goes out to everybody who's listening. Don't be afraid to challenge these powerful people. Ask them these difficult questions. Have other people also listen in, and you'll be surprised at how many other people may also be agreeing with you. After that, there are people that came up to me and Colin and were like, hey, thank you guys for doing that. I wanted to say something too, but I was too afraid because there were so many other people there that were, buying into the BS that they were selling. But yeah, guys, that's how it should be. If you care about the truth, you got to be fearless and not afraid to call out these powerful people.
Yeah. And again, to explore topics like what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, for example, and the dirtiness there, Epstein, Wexner, and all that's going on. Again, shout out to Whitney Webb. She's going to have a book coming out, I believe, sometime in September, sometime in the fall, about the Wexner. You can pre-order that on Amazon right now. Have you had her on your show, or are you just a fan of her?
I've been trying to get her on the show.
Me too. Like
Yeah.
she's one of my all-time, definitely top of the list for Friends of Indie Left.
I've had Addy Ads on the show who was on the ground. He was like questioning Ghislaine Maxwell's siblings in New York City when the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was happening there. But yeah, that's how it's got to be, guys. It's a service. Like anybody can do this kind of journalism. Go out there. You have a phone, you have a camera. Just go out there, put it up on Twitter or whatever, and then a bunch of people will amplify that. A bunch of people who care about the truth are going to amplify that. So if we want to have a more conscious society, we all have to participate and help to inform people, help expose people to all these truths.
And then now Patreon, did you get taken off of Patreon, or did you choose voluntarily to leave Patreon? I remember you had a whole yeah.
I chose to voluntarily leave Patreon because they were censoring Whitney Webb and Ryan Christian, James Corbett, and I was like, I'm gonna get off Patreon. I'm gonna promote Rockfin more. That was in early 2021, I believe. So that's pretty much what I did with Patreon. And then where else? I'm still on PayPal. I know that they were giving Richard Medhurst a hard time. I think it was last year. Like if they had just typed in Syria, they were gonna they like prevented the payment from somebody who wanted to donate money to him from going through. What else? I'm not sure if Venmo's done anything, but I wouldn't be surprised. Isn't Venmo owned by PayPal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's PayPal mafia stuff, and especially anybody who questions Israel, Palestine, anybody who's right now in dealing and talking about Russia, Ukraine. So we've seen, like, I know you've been covering Consortium News that got their PayPal suspended, and I know that Caleb Maupin right now is still going through it right now with PayPal and I think they shut down his Venmo. Jackson Hinkle.
Oh yeah, and with Mint Press News also.
Right. Yeah, Minar.
But I mean, these are tools that we're forced to use right now because a lot of people do want to do this, for a living or to support themselves. And I mean, it is kind when people donate and all that, but it doesn't mean that we're promoting U.S. fiat currency, or we're promoting PayPal. Or when we use Bitcoin, or when we use Rockfin payments, which is through using the Ray token, which gets converted into Ethereum. It doesn't mean that we are like fans of these things, but these are tools that we're forced to operate in, right? It doesn't mean that just because we have like a job, doesn't mean that we're fans of the petrodollar, right? It's ridiculous when people are like, oh, you shouldn't use any of these platforms. With Patreon, it's because they were censoring more than all these other places, and already it was on Rockfin and all that.
And it was arbitrary. They weren't giving any kind of real reason again, and it's not like there's like some kind of a Section 230 issue at all. It didn't really make sense, other than the fact that they were making a corporate decision. And it's disappointing to see. Again, a lot of people are going toward the Rumble and Locals route right now. We've seen Lee Camp move that route. And just this week, I know Kim Iverson today said that she was going to be doing her first stream on Locals. So Locals is an interesting platform that's a little bit more expensive, I believe, for fans, but will bring in your most engaged group of fans as a content creator and allow you to get more intimate and share more with them. It seems that's what it is. I'm still trying to learn more about it. I know they're trying to get Tara Reid involved with that as well, so I'm gonna be helping her out to see what we can do to get her Locals channel going. There are so many platforms, and it takes so much time to manage all of that. And I'm guessing that's probably why you keep things pretty much to Twitter, YouTube, and Rockfin, right? I mean,
yeah.
There's so many others that we can be using. Like, again, I leverage Substack, and I highly encourage every content creator to be leveraging Substack, even if you're just a video creator, like Richard. And Richard also writes. He's a phenomenal writer. But one of the things that I saw Richard doing, RBN has been doing this as well, is you're building an email list. And in building that email list, you can also embed your live streams right before you go live and send that out to that list for free, and do it quickly, easily, and people can either watch it live on Substack, or they can click to it from the email that they get. And now there's even a Substack app. It pops up in there. That's just another way, again, trying to get around the traditional methods of relying on YouTube to amplify our content. Because, you talked about algorithmic suppression. One of the things I also want to focus on is the fact that corporate media has bought YouTube. And what they bought in YouTube is they bought the positioning on page one. They bought the placement. They bought the who's going to be recommended next. Because what they've done is they've rigged the algorithm by buying so many paid ads that it looks like these are the videos and the clips that are being viewed the most. But it's only because they're being shown to people the most, because it's mostly because of the autoplay. Honestly, I turn off autoplay on my YouTube. But think about the number of people that don't have it turned on. All right. They watch one news clip, and then what's the next thing that autoplays? It's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Fox News. And it's really weird that it very often, as a lefty, I get Fox News playing on mine. But again, according to the statistics now, more Democrats are watching Fox News than MSNBC and CNN, which is absolutely amazing.
I didn't know that, but that's hilarious.
it just shows the uniparty. Yeah, the Tucker Carlson has a bigger Democratic audience apparently than Rachel Maddow does now, or something like that. I don't know how that works. I'm not terribly surprised,
since they're so
it's gotta be
tribal, right?
It's gotta
be. Yeah.
That's
another thing I gotta point out to people is ask yourself if you're being tribal, because a lot of people, they think they're above it. They think that, I'm not a hardcore Democrat, I'm not a hardcore Republican, but you still see a lot of tribalism within independent media. So ask yourself if you're actually being tribal, and if that's blinding you from seeing certain truths. Again, what should be primary is looking at what has the most evidence, which you're not going to get on mainstream news. And now, as you were saying, Indy, yeah, they've all coalesced with each other. Google, everything that's owned by these mainstream outlets, which is what going to be State Street, BlackRock, and the Vanguard Group. It should be illegal how only a small amount of individuals own pretty much everything. And it's not just independent news, it's not just mainstream news. It's also, they also own all these food products. They own all these agricultural industries. They own all these big pharma companies. And that's why they promote those things on mainstream news. They're trying to get people aligned so that they can buy all their products, no matter which industry it's in. Pharma, what else? Computers, all that stuff. And then early on, I was mentioning how Kyle Kalinski's channel, Humanist Reports channel, they were growing a lot, and they saw that as a threat. Even though they're not exposing the full truth, they knew that it was going to lead down a path that's not beneficial to them. They knew that eventually they're going to get channels that were exposing more and more truths. More people are going to start figuring more things out. So they try to slow that process down by increasing the censorship and pushing out more of their own content, which is through the corporate news.
Well, and now we're getting even more corporate news. Apparently, Chris Cuomo went to a brand new corporate news funded channel by the Tribune Company. That's a little scary. I think it's called like News Now. It's some kind of generic thing. Right now, they only have 50,000 viewers or 50,000 watchers, but watch how quickly that thing gets raised and uplifted because it's on. It gets put on a corporate algorithm, and they put big dollars behind it to promote it.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to go get big names, and this thing's going to get put on the map. And now you're just going to have just what we needed: another corporate mouthpiece that's going to be censoring and narrative managing on behalf of the establishment. Because I think what they realize is the names, the traditional names that are going on in media are exposed. People have aligned those brands with certain parties, with certain ideologies, and now they're looking to, and this is what you and I have talked about on your channel before with the Breaking Points Network, introduce completely new lanes, okay, which can even be promoted as independent media, quote unquote. It's pretty amazing.
What was that guy who's like a discount Whitney Webb that you were trying to expose, where it's like, oh, these are like the controversial hot takes, like when he was like, oh yeah, when he's talking about the jab, but he's talking about things that were already exposed like 11 to 15 months ago.
Oh yeah, World Economic Forum, Great Reset stuff.
Yeah,
once it's actually like
now they're talking about it.
Once it's acceptable to talk about, that was James Lee that they brought on,
James
right?
Lee.
With the 5149 podcast. And again, that they are a network that is influenced heavily by at least some type of corporate slant. Everything is framed from, well, how's it gonna play out in the mainstream world, in the normie world, and not necessarily looking at it. And again, they're looking at it from that perspective. Look, Sagar is a libertarian righty, and Marshall, who is Sagar's partner, they work with the Hudson Institute. And look, we've had extensive conversations about Crystal and about her previous ties with Reid Hoffman and the pact that she funded, and then going to work for The Hill Rising, and really never working outside of corporate media once until she left The Hill. Even independently, her channel's been able to raise 7 figures worth in the first year, and it's not necessarily going to pay content creators. We can say that. At least Max Alvarez getting $300 a hit. It seems to be some kind of an imbalance. I know they have a tremendous staff, and they got an expensive desk. They're looking for a much nicer desk. Sagar's been gushing over his desk. But again, it's really hard to find independent channels that are not, that are really not corporate influenced, that claim to not be corporate influenced. And that's, again, what we seek out. And we're again, you talked about bubbles and being careful not to be in a bubble. And again, this is why I think it's important to pay attention to people from different ideologies, to Reason Magazine, to read what's going on, what the Washington Post and New York Times, though we can't stand them, we have to know what they're putting out, because we have to be able to counter that narrative. And a lot of times people just kind of end up in this little circle, in this small group, and there's only so much content all of us can consume in one setting and at one time. It's one of the reasons why I built Independent Left News, is so that you would be able to go to one place and find all of the uncorrupted counter narratives to what you're seeing everywhere else in one central place. And again, I'm really proud to spotlight your channel. Some other of your favorite guests. So I did want to ask you about, I asked you about Wendy, you haven't had her on yet, but some of your favorite guests, some of the weirder interviews that you didn't know. I always like to ask about,
weird interviews.
Yeah. Things that didn't necessarily go the way you thought they would.
Oh, weird. In terms of they didn't go how I thought they would. There are some that did go how I thought it was going to go, but it was still weird. Like when I had Ryan Grimm on the show, and I asked him, like, hey, why don't you talk about stuff that, like the Intercept's track record with whistleblowers. And I talked about who owns the Intercept, and, why he doesn't expose that person and the things that he's done. That was kind of weird. When I had Nick Brognon, that was kind of weird too, because I don't want to get into such a long story, but
a couple people were asking about that in chat, but I don't want to get into that today either.
Yeah, I was just like, hey, you said this thing about me before, why, like, have you changed your mind, or what? Why'd you say that about me? Other weird interviews, I don't know, I'm pretty careful about who I bring on and how I approach the interview. Like I usually have things prepared for that. With panel discussions, depending on the topics that I'm going to talk about, like if I'm just talking about like news topics, I have that prepared as well. But when it comes to just like differences in opinions topics, like when I talked about the Freedom Convoy, I had on Nick from RBN. What's her name? I feel horrible for blanking on the name. Megan from she used to be a part of RBN.
Yeah, Meg, Killjoy Meg.
Killjoy Meg. And I had Fiorella and Glory, and I had we have these like they were like in disagreement, but at the end of the day they talked about it like mature people, and they learn things from each other. But this is what we have to do in this space. We can't just let ourselves be divided and not talk. We have to talk about why we have the stances that we have, so that we can come to an understanding. We don't have to agree at the end of the day, but if there's an understanding, and that's key. And over time, maybe you start swaying more towards whatever has more evidence, whatever makes more sense.
And we do it with an open mind. That's the other thing is just realize that people are not coming into this with nefarious agendas. I mean, people that I've met in this space have pretty much been genuine. They are in it for the knowledge. They're in it for exposing the truth. They're in it for exposing corruption. And this is who we want to try to align ourselves with and amplify and support and work together with. Because look at what like Robbie's doing with the guys at Sludge. Again, we just keep expanding our tent one person at a time. I know Warren, shout out to our boy Warren at Extra Booyah. Warren has been phenomenal at finding smaller channels and bringing in different perspectives.
Yeah.
Like Andrew Roqueford, the Roqueford Files was one of the newer channels I know that he's been bringing in. And so I now started sharing his videos pretty much because Warren started watching them. And I know Glory's been on his show. A couple of people I believe have already
Warren's
been on his
funny.
show. Warren's great.
Yeah, I love going on his show.
Yeah, Warren's taking a bit of a break, but he'll be back soon. We heard from him this week.
I had to get one too.
Yeah, everybody needs to once in a while. You know, this space can be tough, and that's the other thing is how do you deal with as you're coming up and as you're getting your channel is bigger, dealing with trolls, dealing with haters, dealing with people who are calling you a grifter or a liar or a what? I mean, look, you've had tons of people come at you. I've seen on Twitter. I've defended you every case because, you know, look, this is not everybody gets it right all the time. If you don't get it right, I've definitely seen you come out to make a correction and to make an adjustment quickly and to resolve these. And that's the only thing we can ask our content creators and our journalists and our reporters to do. Talk about how you deal with some of that pushback from the public and from fans and from haters.
If like it shouldn't bother us. If it's not true, then you know why are you going to give those people energy? If you're getting angry or whatever, then you're just you're entertaining them. But I mean, if someone's calling you a grifter or someone's calling you I don't know, some of these other things that trolls say to independent content creators, just analyze it yourself. Am I being a grifter? Am I doing this for money? Do I have a bias with anything? Is there something that my audience wants to hear more? And if there's like another perspective that does have evidence, but it's inconvenient for my audience to hear, like these are things that would classify as a grifter. But like if you're keeping certain stories out from your audience and if you really are just doing it for money, but if you're not doing any of those things, then you're not a grifter, right? You've analyzed it yourself. You're not a grifter. So if it's not true, then you know, let that other person it's their problem. They think you're a grifter, then they'll sit with that on their own. That shouldn't bother you. Don't let that affect your, I don't know, your aura, your space. Like you help maintain that peace within you so that you can have, you know, a good life, so that you can have a peaceful life. You can be in the present moment.
I mean, all we're doing is pursuing knowledge, right?
Yeah, if all you're doing is just presenting evidence, you know, why should they have a problem with that unless if it's something inconvenient for them, something they don't want to hear. If they don't want to hear, if they're getting mad, then that's their problem. I've had more problems with people that I got close to who are audience members. I learned a lot through audience members, don't get me wrong. Like I've talked to a lot of them, but there was this space that we were starting to form with each other. Like we would talk a lot, like joke around a lot and all that, and talk about recent news and all that. But there were some butting heads that started occurring, some accusations of like other people and all that. So I learned that I have to keep somewhat of a distance from certain people. And there are some good people out there that do have a level of understanding. Like, for example, other content creators are gonna have a level of understanding with you. So those are people that I maintain contact with. Like I can like text I can text like Pasta, for example, or Fiorella or Nico. We don't always just have to only talk about news, or Steve or Glory. And you're going to meet a lot of people. If you plan on getting into the independent media space, you're going to meet a lot of people. You are going to learn a lot from your audience members, but some of them are not going to be all there. Don't take it too personally. Just maintain a healthy space from some of those people. And Indy knows this also, because he's dealt with some of these individuals as well. Unfortunately, not everybody is mentally well. The system is making people go insane. And we want to help lead by example. How can you take care of your mental health and all that? How can you maintain inner peace and all that? Show by example. And hopefully that helps, actually make a more conscious society. That actually helps some of these people that aren't in a good mental space see, oh, I like how Indy's dealing with this. Oh, I see how Bruno gets a lot of shit thrown at him and it's not affecting him. So, you lead by example in that way. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, it's being above it and knowing who you are and what you're trying to create, and not letting that deter you from your mission, but also somewhat, kind of being aware of it, paying attention to it, and asking, like you said, asking yourself the hard questions. Am I actually doing what they're claiming? If not, that's really on them to resolve, and you just keep doing what you're doing. And again, that's great advice for all these content creators. Don't self-edit. Say what you want to say what you mean, and don't be afraid of what other people are going to say about it. Stand behind it. And yeah, big fan. All right, man. Well, I that was just about everything I had. I wanted to see, are you going to be doing any upcoming shows, interviews, anything you wanted to promote, amplify, any other channels before we head out for today?
I will have some upcoming interviews in a little bit, but I have to reach out to these people. But I just know that I do have interviews planned. I have a list of guests that I have to reach out to. The solo videos, they just come as I do them as I see like certain stories. I'm like, oh, I really want to talk about this, and I'll talk about that. The panel discussions, they'll be back soon. I'm wanting to take a break a little bit, because when I'm doing when I do too many shows and I'm absorbing a lot of this negative news, and that does start to affect me. So I absorb a lot of that when I do a lot of research and preparation for panel discussions and all that. So that's just how I function. I know other people can like just pump out videos like every single day talking about story after story, but I function differently. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Rockfin. I'm gonna look to get on Telegram. I know a lot of people are on there that do a lot of great work, like Eva Bartlev and Esther Bealey. I know that a lot of the MCSC fam are on Telegram. Odyssey, I'm also on there. But yeah, Indy, again, thank you very much, man. It was a great conversation that I had with you.
Yeah, man, I always appreciate your insight. Again, I want people to learn more about your channel. Everybody go subscribe to Franc Analysis. Go check Franco out. Follow him at B43Franco. All the links are in the description below, everywhere that you've got. And again, I just appreciate you being out there in the space, asking those hard questions, and continuing to challenge narratives, and to always, what do you say? Always question authority. That's how you like to finish your videos?
Oh, it's to stay informed.
Stay informed. That's right.
Question everything, which you do got to do. Nico says, find your balance, which we all do need to do, right? How can we clearly know what's going on if we are not, if we're not balanced ourselves, we don't find that inner peace, if we're not in the present moment. I say stay informed, because we do got to know how the system is going to affect us, and we got to be prepared for that. We got to be informed about what's going on, so that way we don't get taken advantage of by people who know more about what's going on, right? Which right now is the ruling class, and they are taking advantage of us. So yeah, stay informed. That's what I always say.
Yep. And mine is question everyone's motivation. So thank you, everybody.